Hello everyone. Welcome to the live session of organizational behavior class. So in case any doubts you have, straight away we can move into that. Otherwise, I'll just start with the point that I hope that you are all enjoying, are having a great learning experience going through the sessions. Almost 3 weeks have already been uploaded. So it depends on how you are, your learning pace is. But I hope that there is no hindrance with respect to what you are learning, or let's say you are able to understand, you are able to follow things. If you have any doubt, you may raise it now, or like we can clarify it, we can discuss it out, we can deliberate. And I always believe that people who are actually studious, they have doubts and they will definitely ask. So on that note, I'm open to questions if any. So you can see a couple of people in the teams, as well as somebody have written something in with respect to greetings in the YouTube live. So okay, Pramod Kumar has asked about employee counseling. Okay, employee counseling, can you just elaborate on that? Is that a typical question you are asking, or you want an explanation on employee counseling specifically? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I see people are joining now. So to set things into perspective, let's say if you've gone through the first module, it was all about making yourself aware of what an organization is. How is any particular group different from what an organization is? So that was my initial agenda. I also tried to categorically establish what are the different methods that are being used in OBM, organizational behavior management specifically, how the things are analyzed and things are seen. It is not merely intuition or a conjecture made based on intuition, but more than that, we are based on scientific evidence. Organizational behavior management is based on empirical evidence. So that's how we actually proceed with the whole discipline of OBM. So that was my initial thrust, or that was the point specifically I wanted to underscore there. And then we venture into individual differences per se. Any organization cannot be understood or learned without taking the individuals into consideration. So many a time what happens is that the organization, we tend to make it, we tend to look it from a macroscopic view, not realizing that the individuals make the important, or the key chain or the links are formed by the individuals. And in the coming modules, you'll see that when it comes to knowledge management, when it comes to things like employee silence and all, the key role or the critical aspect or the critical role is played by the employees. So there cannot be an organization existing if we are undermining the individuals in at large. So that's the thing I wanted to establish with respect to the module 1. And we'll see that there are some questions coming up. How do we measure variables in OB? Say we measure perception of delivery workers towards algorithms. Do we ask questions in English for a survey-based study, or use the local language? All right, Sri. So thank you for that question. That's a good question, because that shows your inquisitiveness towards the course, and I really appreciate that. See, what happens basically is when you want to, let me try to explain it in a very simple term. When you want to measure a length, you can use a ruler, you can have a scale or something like that. When you try to have a measure of your weight or height, you measure accordingly. There are devices or there are instruments for that. But that said, when you come to OBM specifically, most of the variables, in fact, 99% I would say, are those variables which we call as latent variables. Now, what are latent variables? Latent variables are those variables which we cannot, actually see or actually measure directly. Let's say personality. How do you measure? Or let's say knowledge hiding. That's my research area. How do we measure that? So all these aspects, we generally go for a scale. Scales are essentially questionnaires that are developed, validated, standardized, and those are questionnaires that other studies. Sometimes there are researchers who refute certain scales or some additions or adaptations or modifications of the scale occur. Coming to your question specifically, when we are trying to measure, let's say Sri, when you're trying to measure something specific to OB, some dimension, we have the liberty to actually modify the scales. When I'm talking about scale, something should come into mind. That's why I said introduction to what scales are or how we actually measure a latent variable. So we can translate it to the local language, but then we translate it back. We use the help of native speakers to actually see that is there any bias that is creeping in because of the translation that has been occurred or that we have done. So these cases are taken into considerations, but then we generally float. Let's say most of the studies which I've done, except one, I've used the language English as the medium with respect to sharing the questionnaires and with respect to taking data or analyzing that, etc. So, but there is always a possibility to use the local language. We cannot actually deny that. So Pramod Kumar want to employ counseling in OB. So you're asking for a topic, employ counseling in OB. You will come across a module, specifically I'll mention module 10, 11, 12, where we actually look into mainly the figments of employee counseling specifically. There are some gradients of employee counseling when I actually pitch you to the topic of knowledge management, specifically knowledge sharing, hiding, employee silence, voice, etc. Specifically, module 12 looks into these aspects. So whatever you're trying to look into employee counseling, I hope you will get at, let's say, module 10, 11, 12, specifically module 12. And I hope that is a question that you are looking for, or you are looking for some other employee counseling. It would be good if you can clarify that. So I have a question from Sachin Kumar. Good afternoon. We know that perception made from various situation and interaction. How we know perception of different people in the first interaction and the first interview? Okay, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. That's why the biggest professionals do make mistake when it comes to recruitment, to be frank. But let's say if we generally use caselets, or we give them assignments, or we give them situation based or context based studies or context based analysis, I think, or I'm of the opinion that you can decode the perception of a particular person to some extent. That said, again, one thing which I've tried to undermine across my lectures, specifically, if you have noted, is one thing that I have given ample importance to the elephant in the room, which is context. Many a time what happens is that we do have a certain predisposition towards something, but those things may change according to the context. I can give a number of examples. You can connect with a number of examples in your workplace. Let us take a case of an interview setting. You might have a very clear perception or a clear attitude towards, let's say, gender neutrality, and you're being asked about that in one of the interview, but then let's say if the interviewer tries to dig deeper, somewhere he or she might be able to get to those elements which may strain you, and you may sometimes open up, and sometimes you might have a contradictory opinion. If yes, then you might open up and say that. So basically it is something which is peripheral. Interviews generally are not going deeper, but if your question is very specific to understanding a person in the first go, in the first interview itself, it's relatively difficult. People, let me acknowledge the fact that people can fake it, people can actually pretend to be somebody else. In one of the classes we have specifically taken a topic. If you come across, or if you have seen, I think in the module 3 there's a mention of that called as impression management. So impression management is an outcome of what we see generally in terms of office, or even in interviews, or even in selection processes, etc. So it's difficult, but let's say some experienced people can always give some context, give some caselets, of ask some questions that can actually trigger those hidden feelings or something, and thereby they can actually assert or actually calculate what the person is, or how the person is going to behave in that particular context, or X or Y, ABC, any particular context for that matter. I hope that clarifies your question. So I think Sachin Kumar, that clarifies it. I think I am not missed out on any questions till now, because a lot of people are sending the greetings. Thank you. Happy to hear that the classes are good and it is making some impact. I'm really happy that you all are there. Vignesh, Moise, Ekta, Peer, Sabzar, yeah, thank you for attending the course, and I hope it's giving you some insights into what OB is, organizational behavior management is specifically. See, it is more complex than we generally think. Generally, what happens is that when you come to an MBA class specifically, OB happens to be the first, I think it would be the first term subject or first semester subject. It is not getting that importance or relevance. This is my personal take on it, because many a time we tend to either peripherally or just scan through the macro aspects of OB. We generally, or we seldom touch the micro aspect. So micro OB is very critical, and when you look into organization design, structure, all these things pertain to macro OB. But when you are actually looking into an organization, who defines an organization, who ensures that organization is there, or how organization exists, or what are the dynamics, or how organization is thriving, you see that some organizations are flourishing, whereas organizations in very similar context, with very similar product lines or processes what they are following, they are not able to succeed that much. So what could be the reason why some organizations are a failure, whereas some organizations are success in one hand? So these things, I always believe that the nuances of answering, or the nuts and bolts of all the answers to these questions lie in a clear and proper understanding of organizational behavior. And that makes OBM, organizational behavior management, as a discipline all the more relevant. So this, in fact, would set a background or pave a way to what can come as a human resource management as a next course. So this is what I certainly believe the B schools have understood that, and that's why it has been inserted in the first term itself or semester itself. But many a time the importance given to OBM is not that much, because we tend to undermine that We see that yes, behavior is important, but it could be changed, it could be modified. But as it is said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So whatever wonderful strategy you come out with, whatever core objectives you place in front of the board, if your workforce is not ready to help, if your workforce is not ready to work properly, there is no good interpersonal relationship that's existing in an organization. There is always an element of doubt. You are not promoting the mastery climate. You'll understand all this once you attend these lectures. So maybe it depends on how far you have gone through the course, but let's say the organization is not promoting a mastery climate. The organization is looking for only profiteering. So all these cases technically will affect the growth and sustenance of the organization in the long run. So this is what makes OBM all the more relevant. So I have another question. In some cases, because of some vested interest, employee in the organization behave differently, but they have a common goal. In that situation, how can let's say all employees move towards the same goal? Maybe I think that's your question. See, every single individual will have a different perspective when it comes to an organization. Every single individual will have a different set of orientation also. His or her demands or expectations from the organization might also be different. So having said that, when you're looking into an organization holistically, what is important is the individual interest, individual goals. Are they more important than the organizational goals? Or let's say you're part of a group, the group goals or the team goals. So we have to take a call on that specifically. So if I have understood your question very clearly, what I would like to mention is, let's say there are individual preferences, individual targets. I will put forward a word called a strategic intent. Strategic intent is when your individual goals, your means you have to take it in a figurative manner. Any individual's individual goal is aligned to the organizational goal. That is the situation where strategic intent comes into picture. So when you are looking into such a situation where there is strategic intent, where you are totally, in line with the organizational goal and you are not going in some other tangent. So then that is the way the organization benefits. That is the way the individual also benefits. So you will always have a good say only when your organization is stronger. You might be a talented employee, you might be skillful, you might have a diverse set of skills, all good. But that said, if your organization is not performing, because in the end of the day, your identity is tied to the organization. So if the organization is not performing well, organization is considered in the market as a flawed one, as the one which is going down consistently, then whatever stronger you are, however stronger you are, or whatever skillful or how much ever you have achieved individually, it does not matter. So if there is some level of incongruence that is there within the groups or within the team, it is always better to resolve those and work towards the organizational goals. In achieving the organizational goals is the achievement of your individual goals. If that realization is coming sooner, then the organization will thrive and sustain better. So that's what my take on this. I hope, Sachin, that clarifies your doubt. I think I've got a question here. Let me check. So I have a question from Jeevaratnam. We can develop OB where there is more of white collar employees, but how will we try to implement in workforce or unorganized sector basically? All right, so first of all, I slightly beg to differ in this particular case, because the moment we are telling that OB is restricted to only white collar jobs or white collar employees, we are trying to undermine all the theories and principles OBM puts forward. I certainly believe that as you move through the different modules of the course, there are 12 modules, as you might already know. Every single module will emphatically try to underscore one thing, that all these things are relevant at all the situations. Only thing is, let's look into a situation where you are trying to give a motivation theory and you are thinking that it works only in the situation of white collar employees. But in those situations also, let's say you are having a autocratic leadership in that particular organization where we had considered, and there are only white collar employees. So there the context makes it irrelevant. So that said, we can see the other side. Let's look into unorganized sector where people's motivation or their learning patterns, they all remain little bit entwined, or they can be easily defined by the theories which I'm stating. So I will make a small difference of opinion here. I don't totally agree with the fact that it is only restricted to one. Why we are looking at, or why we have got this notion, might be because I'm just trying to see the thought process behind your question. It might be the reason that OB is more documented in terms of white collar employees. Most of the researchers, it would be wrong if I say all the research studies, but most of the research studies are actually happening with respect to white collar employees, and we are, to a certain extent, I take the blame as a OB researcher also, we are undermining the unorganized sector. There are a lot of practical difficulties in getting data from them. That also is there. But that said, the whole notion why the question has come forward, Jeevaratnam, I certainly believe that the what we call as the limelight goes to the white collar employees, and that could be the reason why such a question has emanated. But that said, I certainly believe that most of the theories, most of the practical things have ramifications even in unorganized sector. There is no denying the fact. I hope that clarifies your question. So I have a question from Sri. What are the broad subjects courses one should undertake to be a good OB researcher? Please give an overview. I'm in PhD first year. Okay, just starting. So Sri, I understand that you are a PhD student, just started your research. So part of the course, so see, definitely what will happen is, if you are doing, your PhD in OB or HR, I would certainly suggest that you need to have certain core courses in your kitty. It could be organizational behavior, it could be human resource management, it could be with respect to, let's say, strategic human resource management, let's say some international perspective, cross-culture management, or international human resource management. Talking about OB also, there are two options, as I've already mentioned, two versions of that. What I have taken here specifically is associated with I've tried to give, at times I've tried to give a macro perspective also, but most of the times my focus, as you'll see, the course title is also organizational behavior, individual dynamics in organization. So my focus specifically was on the individual dynamics part. But that said, when you are a researcher in OB, you need to have a macro perspective. So something like an organizational structure and design, if you have a course there, that would be a better option. You can also look into, let's say, what your thesis is or what your research is going to be. Because as a PhD supervisor, I always believe that you should be taking courses, and in my research experience also, you should be taking courses which is categorically related to your thesis or upcoming thesis also. You need not do a course on, let's say, physics when your thesis is not related to that. But when you are actually looking into human resource management perspective and some macroeconomic fundamentals, you should essentially have understanding of economics or econometrics for that matter, macroeconomics for sure. So it again depends on what your orientation is, what your direction of studies, what your direction of research is. So based on that, because my personal experience I can share, I've done courses in macroeconomics, even though my research was focused on knowledge management, knowledge hiding specifically. So as a advice towards what course you have to take, I certainly believe that you should go for courses that actually equip you, enable you for a better research output. But having said that, I've also given you some of the courses, a list of courses that can actually, or that should be there in your list of core courses to be done. So I hope that clarifies your doubt. Saurabh Biswas, are there any research done on AI as a technology and its effect on employees? I think employees' behavior and organizational behavior. Is that what you're asking? Yes, this is an upcoming field, and certainly we would be elated. Our team is working on to look forward and float a course on this, and we are under the background work of this. But let me be very honest, there has been very minute work that has happened when you are looking into the other works specifically. You do not have a large pool of actual data that has emerged from studies. Let's say if you ask me this particular course also, what makes it different from any other organizational behavior course specifically is I've tried to include two specific factors. One is I've tried to include some of the variables or some of the concepts still getting evolved, like one of construct being my research area of knowledge hiding. So I've tried to focus that in module 11. In module 12, I come up with employee silence. And in most of the modules, if you see, the last lecture or the last couple of lectures in every single module for that matter is focused on or is standing in the background of sound empirical research. So I've tried to adapt towards what is happening in the research world, and I rather than just making it a textbook based course, I tried to adapt it towards what the research studies are taking or what are the research directions that are being given with respect to those particular subjects specifically. So that orientation, I've tried to capture that. So taking a cue from that, if I have to answer your question, AI in HR is an evolving and emerging subject. So basically our attempt here is to bring out research studies, bring out conclusions from basic empirical core research that is either being done or has already been done. The list of studies is quite low, but we'll try to bring out something that is more beneficial both for the industry as well as for the academia. But that said, the studies are still evolving. That would be my final answer for that. So Sri, so I was reading your PhD thesis, very well written. Thank you. Thank you so much. How did you finalize your thesis question? How does one find the research gap? Okay. Okay, since I'll take 1 or 2 minutes to explain that. I was just scanning through other questions because I do not want to make it wholly personalized towards me. But again, since there are questions that are still coming only. So see, what happened with respect to my research is specifically I have certain industry experience, and over that experience itself, I have understood that knowledge hiding was categorically used as a strategy. Now in academia also I've observed that. So knowledge hiding as a construct before actually getting a clear idea of what it is, I had this in my mind. So when we had gone through our early research literature review and all, we have understood that knowledge hiding is a new construct, and it was established by Connelly 2012. Connelly et al. Catherine Connelly. She's a professor at the McMaster University, Canada. So her team had actually given out the different variables. They have established the dimensionality of the construct, and they've also even looked into some of the strategies that are observed. So this created an interest in me, and when I did my literature review through a morphological approach, I also found out that this is certainly a big gap that is emerging in the literature. And when I looked into the literature review very closely, we also found out, our research team, me, my supervisors, we also found out that we have actually observed that there are few studies that have happened linking power and knowledge sharing, let alone knowledge hiding. So that also emerged as a big gap, and it was again categorically established in the seminal literature review of Wang and No 2010. So all these aspects came together. My interest in the area, the attempt to define what is knowledge hiding, the thing that it is a new construct, it is evolving, the gaps that emerge from our literature review, and the support of some seminal literature reviews. So everything conspired together, and that's how specifically I narrowed down to the topic, I can say. So that is how I tried to develop the research questions, and that's how the research happened. So how OB reduce the work stress? So it is a very qualitative question, because if you ask somebody, again, it is context dependent. So if you ask somebody who is facing a lot of stress, he might not or she might not agree with your statement. So organizational behavior per se will not totally eliminate your stress. Stress will be there, but to a certain extent, if you know the principles and practices and the theories behind different aspects of organizational behavior, you can reduce the stress level that is being otherwise created in an organization. But let's say if your organization is supportive, you have a very good conducive organizational climate, your organization supports learning mastery, your organization supports good interpersonal relationships, your organization gives the necessary psychological safety. So all these aspects would definitely give or make your workplace a stress-free zone. That said, again, there are individual differences. So let's say you might have some mood swings, there might be some emotions that is running in your mind, you might be a different personality altogether, there might be chances that you have a certain different attitude towards a particular person or a set of people or a set of things. So all these things also define OB closely. So that said, you having a conducive work environment, you having a supportive organizational hierarchy is always the precursor, no doubt about it. But that said, it is essentially an individual based aspect also. So if the individual is having some problem with respect to his emotion, with respect to his personality, with respect to his attitude, some of the things which will come in module 3, 4, 5 respectively. So all these aspects would certainly play a significant role when it comes to stress. But otherwise, I'll be happy to know that in your organization, if you are having a very supportive climate, your theories or the aspects which you have learned will definitely help you to have a stress-free life, or at least significantly reduce the stress levels within the organization. That's what I can say regarding this. Rajendra Kumar says, classes are going well. Your explanation of the subject is excellent, sir. Thank you for that, Rajendra. Sachin again has a question. Can theoretical knowledge of OB helps in the bureaucratic and hierarchy or hierarchical organization? Okay. So there is some limitation to this. I am thinking that, let's say, if you are in a bureaucratic and hierarchical organization, the change that you can make is slow, or the pace or the rate of change would be slow. I'm not telling that you cannot make change, but the premise of our question is, or where you come from, I get it. The premise of your question itself is that there is a set hierarchy, there is a bureaucratic system in place. There might be red tapeism. So all these aspects are certainly trying to, reduce the efficiency of you as an individual. But that said, the good point is that if it is hierarchical but not autocratic, there might be some system in place. So if you are technically following the system and you can make use of your learnings in OB, let's say you can refine your personality according to the understanding you have observed, or you can modify or retrain your attitude according to the information or the knowledge you have gained from the course, you can definitely be a better performer within that hierarchy. So many a time I have seen categorically that individuals who are working in a very hierarchical, bureaucratic setup, they tend to complain the system. There is a lot of negative energy. There is not a lot of criticisms that are happening around. But that said, if you are able to just change the way you perform in terms of, or with respect to, or with the aid of the theories, or what you get from this organizational behavior course, or generally, you can definitely survive and you can definitely flourish. There will be a system. You cannot bypass the system. I understand that. But that said, the work within the system could be made more efficient. Let's say I'll take any example. I'll take an example and I can say, if there is a system in place, it might not be difficult for you to engage in the system and make the system psychologically safe. But contrary, if you are looking into any other organization, if there, let's say there is no system in place itself, you are talking about a diametrically opposite setup of a bureaucratic or a hierarchical setup where you do not have a system in place, you cannot observe, or you cannot work for a psychologically safe environment like that. For that, you have to first work, you have to try your best to actually establish a system first, then you have to work for psychological safety. So there is an inherent advantage, but I certainly agree with one aspect, that the change and the pace of the change might be relatively slow. I agree to that, but that said, you have an inherent advantage that if you are trying to take up the core policies, the core things which you have learned, then definitely you can be a better person within those organizations. So I hope that clarifies your question, Sachin Kumar. So So I'm looking into the Teams meeting also. So yeah, I see a couple of people having logged in, but I am not having any questions there. Happy to know that you are enjoying the class. There is learning that's happening, and I've tried to break it down into simple concept, rather than keep it very sophisticated and make things very much theoretical. I've tried to break down things into something which anybody and everybody can understand, and that's why almost all the explanations I've tried to make with examples relevant from the organizational context. So if you are working in an organization, if you are a person who is associated with any organization, you will definitely appreciate that. And I hope and I think that there will be a great learning experience you'll have. So employees, I have one question. So Saurav Viswas has asked, employees' decision to engage in extra role behavior OCB will make his or her leaders more ethical. Let me think on it. I don't think that a conclusion like that could be made. See, being ethical, is it actually depending on something? I certainly don't believe that. You are ethical because you are ethical. Somebody is having a certain behavior, you are ethical. Somebody is behaving in a different manner, you are unethical. It is an inconsistency in behavior, and I see that can be something that you can brag about, but it is not something which is true. So certainly my take on this is, whatever be the behavior, I'll come to OCB. Whatever be the behavior, if you are ethical, you are ethical. So your subordinate works in X fashion. Let's say you have two subordinates, A and B. A works in X fashion, B works in Y fashion. X fashion is more suitable, more conducive, and more recommended. Does not mean that you are more ethical towards A than B. Then there is inconsistency in your behavior. So I personally believe that when you are ethical, you will always display ethical behavior, irrespective of what you are getting or what you are facing. So this is the actual consistent behavior pattern. Sometimes, let's say under pressure or under contextual pressures, you might, as an exception, behave in a way or two. But otherwise, I certainly believe that ethics or ethical behavior is a consistent behavior, and across the domain, across the spheres of influence, across your work practice, you will do that. Right now, let's come into OCB. So since I've categorically established that ethical behavior does not change according to any other behavior, so even if it's negative, it's not going to change. So OCB, organizational citizenship behavior, I don't think that because somebody is displaying OCB will make the other person more ethical. No, I certainly don't subscribe to that notion, but I will certainly appreciate that if somebody is displaying OCB, that is very good for the organization. There is no doubt about that. And such practices should be necessarily encouraged. So that should be the necessary outcome. It should not be that for somebody who is practicing OCB, I'll be ethical, and somebody who is not practicing, I will not be ethical. So that should not be the learning, or that should not be the actual thing that you are understanding. Rather, it is like OCB is a good behavior. Somebody who is, displaying behaviors like organizational citizenship behavior, please try to appreciate that. Please try to acknowledge that. That said, behaviors like ethical behavior should be consistent, and it is not dependent on context per se. So I have another question from good afternoon, Vaishnavi. Vaishnavi has asked, how can students with a technical background leverage their knowledge in organizational behavior to excel in interdisciplinary roles within the industry? See, many a time, if you have seen across campuses today, across institutes of eminence, institutes of national importance, there is a ground that is emerging for techno MBA, technical MBA. So I'm talking with respect to the reality in picture. So why is the need for technical MBA or technological MBA has come up? When you're looking into the technical aspects, so being a mechanical engineer, I certainly understand that there are certain limitations in your training with respect to man management, with respect to the way you can handle a workforce. And you will certainly agree with me, above a certain level in the organization, more than the technical level or equal to that, what you are looking after is the people under you who are working with you. So that will warrant a certain level of man managerial or man management skills or managerial skills specifically, which will definitely come from an understanding of specified courses. And organizational behavior specifically happens to be one such course, which can act as a bridge between a technical person, a hardcore technical individual who is not so aware about the different aspects of human well-being, let's say like attitude, personality, like your behavioral patterns in terms of how you are handling knowledge, your the way you keep silent, or the psychological safety associated to that. So all these aspects, your perception, all these aspects, so every single module I can list out. So all these aspects essentially acts or act as a bridge between a technical person and somebody who is going to actually become a good manager. So courses like organizational behavior, Vaishnavi RK, that's the answer for you. I certainly believe that will definitely act as a bridge where you have the sound understanding of technical expertise. You already have that. You also get to know people, how they are going to perform, how they are going to work in a better fashion. So that will ensure that you come out as a good manager. You come out as a great individual altogether within your workforce. So I hope that clarifies your question. Any other questions? Again, a lot of comments are coming, so I'm happy to know that you're enjoying the class and you're getting something out of that. So if you look into the entire module, there are modules which look into workplace issues or workplace aspects like knowledge exchange, employee silence, etc. So all these aspects, including even learning in organizations, so all these aspects are quite relevant and quite important. So that will give you some insight into where you stand as an employee in an organization. Is your organization promoting the learning pattern within you, or is it helping you to be a better person? So all these aspects typically underline or underscore the basic understanding. So Saurav Vishwas has asked, how OB influence the anxiety, I think anxiety of an employee, something like that, anxiety in employee. So if we look into organizational behavior, it is more about understanding you and the individual around you. So it could be your team member, it could be your co-worker, it could be a subordinate, it could be a boss, it could be anybody within the organizational ambit. Essentially, it can be extrapolated to your family and outside society, etc. But that will definitely give you an understanding of what you are. Let's say we have a specific module on personality. That, let's say I'm specifically taking any personality theory, I'm taking Big Five. Whether you are open, whether you are a person who is having extraversion or neuroticism or conscientiousness, all these aspects typically ascertain what your personality is. Then there is also a situation like you tend to understand what your attitude is, or you also get inputs how you actually see interpersonal relationships are emerging. Like in module 11 specifically, I talk about the trust deficit, and also I talk about the reciprocity, or what we call as the distrust loop. Let me take that example. If let's say you are hiding knowledge to somebody, or you are taking up a counterproductive organizational behavior, it could be anything. It could be social undermining, it could be socially belittling, or knowledge hoarding, not knowledge hiding, knowledge hoarding, or it could be ridiculing, anything. If that is done to a particular person, tomorrow there is a good probability that that individual is going to reciprocate in a similar fashion. So this, because you have done that in the first place, you have already raised the level of distrust. There is already a trust deficit that is happening in a dyadic nature. Because of the trust deficit, there is a distrust that has emerged, and there is a good probability that the person is going to reciprocate in a similar fashion. So this will ensure a distrust loop. So you'll see that if you are learning OB specifically, you will tend to stay away from such issues or such problems which can actually facilitate or actually increase the level of anxiety in you. So that would be my take on actually telling that a good knowledge in behavior, behavior of yourself, behavior of others, and organizational behavior specifically will help you to be a better person within the organization. So I hope that clarifies the question. Saurav, this was. So thank you, Vaishnavi. Thank you for the comment. If we look into another question by Sri, is the study of OB based on perception or reality? Because most studies use surveys which actually measure perception. Other variables is the concept of reality, subject of OB, psychology, philosophy. Okay. So couple of things to be quickly discussed here. One is, if you look into OB or the study of OB, it is not only perception. When you are talking about perception, I certainly understand that you are talking about self-reports, like what my personality is. Actually, I am actually filling up the survey. So I think that is your concern there. The good point is that yes, there could be some bias that could creep in, but there are situations or there are tools which try to minimize that. That said, if you ask any other person about you, it might be a wrong understanding or it might be a wrong communication of the results. So when you are talking or when you are thinking that self-reports and filling up the surveys on one's own will have a negative aspect, there is other side too. There is a flip side to the entire scheme of things, which is that other people talking about you or displaying you or say explaining about you will also be wrong. So that is a certain dilemma that OB is facing, no doubt about it. But there are a lot of tools and techniques to avoid biases. That said, if we look into the studies that have happened, yes, a good chunk of studies have happened with respect to self-report. There is no doubt about it. But there are other aspects. There are other experimental methods. There are other, now the gamification methods are coming in, which can certainly extract more information. Tools like social network analysis, which can actually extract real-time data, which we are doing here. So all these aspects might be more objectively summarizing the behavior or summarizing the interpersonal relationship specifically. Whereas if you are only to see or only to observe that OB study is entirely based on self-report or self-analysis, I will say that is a wrong notion, that is a wrong understanding. There are a lot of other studies. If you see the entire set of studies, there are experimental studies, there are tools that have emerged in such a way that people are able to give you the right answer or able to give you the exact exactly what they feel in a real-time situation without or with minimal error. So this is what the research in OB has developed to or is developing to. So considering that, I certainly believe that the research has gained momentum and it is going raising leaps and bounds. There is no doubt about it. I hope that clarifies my your question, Sri. I could answer that successfully. Okay, Sri has commented, thank you, answering all the questions enthusiastically. Yours is the only course which I don't watch on 2x playback speed. Very lively and enthusiastic you are. Thank you so much for that wonderful comment. So I'm happy to see that. So the good point is that I take it as a compliment and I understand that it's a good learning experience. So if there is any thing that has that I have learned over my experience over as a teacher is that maximum you have to deliver within the minimum time frame you have. If you are given 1 hour, you have to deliver maximum possible. If you are given 30 minutes, you have to deliver the maximum possible. So you don't know the time limit. You don't know the time limit to be philosophical. You don't know the time limit, how much you will be in the earth also. So maximum you can deliver, commit minimum, but you try to deliver maximum. So thank you, Sri, for that comment. Thank you. Any other questions? So I hope. So we have last 5 minutes. So if there are any quick questions, then you can answer. You can ask. I'll try to answer those. Anyhow, thank you all for joining with me today. But we have the last 4 minutes, so it's always good. I will, try to come with a couple of more, live sessions if possible. But if you have any doubt, I think you would have just started going through the lectures, but certainly try to catch up the pace. And I can definitely vouch that as the course goes into the latter modules, it will become more interesting. If it is not now. So I don't think it is not interesting now, but still, some of the core aspects like values, or if you look into other modules, let's say motivation, job design, and even learning to a certain extent, I've tried to incorporate some new research context and research studies into that, which will certainly add interest and will certainly give you an industry level input into your frame of reference specifically. So I hope that can definitely give you an edge over your other fellow mates who are in your organization. But that said, see, it is not that you are competing against anybody. You are actually trying to learn organizational behavior to make your organization a better place. Let me remind you that. For that, if let's say if the organizational management or the management as such is not supporting you, you can definitely try to be the change maker. You can try to say or convince or try to convince the management, your co-workers, your boss, your subordinates, that there are certain principles that will make your work enjoyable, your life enjoyable within the organization. So that should be the understanding you are specifically you should have from the course. Dinesh Kumar, thank you, sir, your explanation. Super. Thank you for the comment. So we have last 2 minutes. If anybody wants to ask any quick question, you can go ahead, please. So if let's say if there are no more questions, I'll try to wind up. Just I'll take 1 minute and tell you that, see, over the course how it is designed in a way that module by module I'm trying to increase the level of difficulty a little bit. So initially I was talking only about organization, what organization is, how OB has emerged as a discipline, what are the different disciplines that have contributed heavily to organizational behavior management as a discipline, how it is evolving, and all these factors have led to diversity. Then we have discussed about values, perception, personality. Then we go into the crux of discussion with respect to the learning, the different patterns of the learning, different theories associated with that. Then finally we conclude with certain newer constructs in organizational behavior. So that is the entire flow of the lecture. So I hope you get a good hold over the flow of the lecture. Every single module is equally important. So the attempt should be, obviously you have to score well and you have to get good marks, but rather than that, you have to make a serious attempt to understand the concept. So every single concept, I have tried my level best to bring in newer concepts, newer examples, industry related examples, for the simple reason that it will add more personalization to the course. So I hope you're all enjoying the course. Thank you all for joining with us today. So, sir, there's one more question. I'll take that as a last question. Sir, it's always been a difficult task to manage conflict and promote effective communication and among teammates. What strategies can I apply to overcome the situation? So, I will not specifically detail on the answer or the points with respect to the answer because of the fact that you have not reached module 6, module 7 for that matter. So there we'll have a detailed discussion on conflict management, look into the motivation part, etc. So that will definitely give you a detailed idea. And in case if you don't find that, you can always get back to the next live session. Thank you so much, sir. I find this course very insightful and important. Thank you all for your cooperation. Study well, learn well. I hope you all do better, do all good, right? So keep the momentum, keep the pace. Still, if you have any doubt, you can always contact me directly also if you feel so. Otherwise, we'll see in another session. Till then, take care. Bye bye.